Welcome to my channel, The World of Science Fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
The crash had left Michael Carter with little choice but to sleep beneath the wing of his half-buried freighter. The desert night had turned bitter cold, but now the morning sky was veiled with a light haze. Through it, the first rays of the sun broke through, painting the landscape in muted gold. His thermal blanket, threadbare after years of use across a dozen hostile worlds, had barely protected him against the night chill. But exhaustion had claimed him, and he'd fallen into fitful sleep beside his ship, the cargo hold miraculously intact, filled with salvaged tech that would fetch a small fortune on the right market. He woke to chaos. Metal striking metal, bodies slamming into sand, shrieks of rage and pain in a dozen different voices. Silhouettes writhed in the diffused morning light. Dozens of tall figures with huntress masks, tearing at each other's limbs, ripping ceremonial garments, drawing blood that glowed eerily in the growing daylight. Michael's eyes snapped open to a battlefield illuminated by the growing light of dawn. He squinted against the unexpected brightness as the sunrise cast long shadows across the desert floor. Dozens of azure-skinned figures surged around his ship. Tall, powerful huntresses with elongated limbs and silver hair, divided into at least 3 distinct groups marked by different tribal insignia. They weren't an organized unit. They were rival clans fighting over spoils. The ship belongs to Daxus. A huntress with scarification covering her face swung a curved blade that sparked against another spear. Her clan members, at least a dozen strong, had formed a perimeter around the freighter's hull, fighting off rivals. "The human is Aryan property," screamed another warrior, her body painted with swirling patterns that pulsed with light as she fought. Her followers, fewer but more heavily armored, had positioned themselves closer to Michael. A third group, marked by silver chest plates that reflected the morning sunlight, tried to push between them. "By ancient right, all skyfall belongs to Zareen." Michael bolted upright, fully awake now, his eyes squinting at the unexpected light as dawn colored the plain in pale hues. His hand instinctively reached for his weapon. Spears clashed against shields. Blades sliced through the morning air, and bodies tumbled across the sand in a frenzy of combat. Iridescent blue blood spattered everywhere, glowing like liquid sapphires against the sun-touched ground. "What the hell is this? A tournament? For me?" He almost laughed at the absurdity despite the danger. Dozens of alien warriors fighting over a crashed ship and its pilot like scavengers over a carcass. 2 huntresses crashed to the ground barely 3 feet from him, locked in vicious combat. One pinned the other, pressing a ceremonial dagger against her throat. "He's mine! I saw him first," was the victor snarled, blue blood trickling from a gash on her forehead. The pinned warrior spat back. "You want the human? Take him. I'll take the ship." A third huntress loomed over them both, her weapon pointed downward. "The trial moon says both belong to the winner." She gestured toward the horizon where the dawn was slowly breaking, painting the desert in soft gold light. Michael scrambled to his feet, pressing his back against the ship's landing strut. His military training screamed at him to find cover, to escape, but there was nowhere to go. The desert stretched endlessly in all directions. The rival clans had surrounded his position completely, their war for ownership of him and his vessel growing more violent by the second. Bodies fell in rows again. Weapons clattered against each other and sliced through the air. One huntress was thrown bodily against his ship, denting the hull plating before sliding down, dazed. Another leapt from the top of the vessel, driving her spear into the sand where a rival had stood moments before. The dawn coolness still clung to the air, but it was rapidly giving way to the heat of the day as the sun climbed higher. The combat filled the morning with sounds of battle, grunts of exertion, cries of pain, the clash of exotic metals, and commands shouted in several dialects of the same alien tongue. Groups formed and reformed as alliances shifted. The blue blood that spilled glowed brighter against the brightening sand, illuminating the battlefield with an otherworldly light. Michael tried to count the fighters but gave up after 30. They moved too fast, their silver hair and azure skin blurring into streaks of light and color as they battled around his ship and position. A full-scale tribal war? Over a crashed freighter and 1 human? Michael muttered in disbelief. He tested his options. Running would be suicide in the open desert. Fighting against these warriors with just his sidearm would be equally futile. He could only watch as his fate was decided in this bizarre, violent auction. As the battle reached a fever pitch, with blood-spattered warriors locked in a dozen individual combats, a new sound cut through the din, a high-pitched whistle that seemed to pierce directly into the brain. The fighting paused momentarily as all heads turned toward its source. From the shadows at the edge of the battlefield, a figure emerged, smaller than the others with golden beads braided into her silver hair that clicked softly with each deliberate step. Unlike the frenzied warriors, she moved with calm precision, her spear held low but ready. The bioluminescent patterns on her skin pulsed with a different rhythm than the others. Steadier, more controlled. She said nothing as she entered the battlefield, but her intent was clear. 3 warriors from different clans moved to intercept her. She dispatched them with economical movements that seemed almost gentle compared to the brutality around her. One she swept off her feet with her spear shaft. Another she redirected into a third with a pivot and push that sent both sprawling. More came at her, 6, then 10. She moved through them like water flowing around stones, never still, never where the blows landed. Each attacker found themselves disarmed, thrown off balance, or pinned with minimal effort. It wasn't just combat skill, it was something more refined, more evolved. Within moments, she stood at the center of a circle of fallen huntresses. Those still standing backed away, weapons lowered in what Michael recognized as reluctant respect tinged with fear. The battlefield had fallen silent, except for the sounds of wounded warriors dragging themselves clear. "Enough," she said, her voice clear and commanding in the sudden silence. "The new day rises." She gestured to the sun now fully visible above the horizon, bathing the desert in warm light that made the spilled blood glow even brighter. "The claiming must be honored." One of the defeated huntresses pushed herself to her knees, blue blood streaming from multiple wounds. "You have no right, Kalia," she snarled. "Your clan is weak. The Daxus found the sky metal first." Another warrior bearing the marks of the Aryan staggered to her feet. "He belongs to no one. He fell between territories. The claiming is contested by right of first blood." She raised her blade, showing the blue liquid that coated its edge. Whether her own or another's was impossible to tell in the chaos. The golden-beaded huntress, Kalia, turned slowly, her posture shifting subtly into something more dangerous. The patterns on her skin flared with sudden intensity, casting her in an aura of blue fire that contrasted with the golden morning light. "He belongs to me, by right of the new dawn, by blood spilled." She raised her spear, showing the iridescent blue liquid that coated its tip, then drove it into the sand with such force that the shaft quivered. "I am Kalia of the Zareen. My claim stands." She pointed to the sun, then to Michael, then drew a line in the sand with her foot. "According to the binding howl, the vessel and the male go to the last one standing. What crosses the boundary during the first light belongs to the victor. I have bested 27 warriors this dawn. Who contests my claim?" The silence that followed was absolute. Even the wounded stopped their sounds of pain. Michael watched as the defeated huntresses exchanged glances, communicating in some silent language of gesture and expression. Their tribal differences seemed forgotten in the face of this new development. Finally, the scarred leader of the Daxus stepped forward, clutching a wound in her side that leaked blue light between her fingers. "The Zareen claim is recognized," she said, each word clearly costing her both physically and in pride. "But know this, Kalia. The Daxus remember those who take what might have been ours." The leader of the Aryan, her once elaborate armor now dented and torn, spat a mouthful of blue blood onto the sand. "As do the Aryan. The human may be yours, but we will watch. One misstep, one weakness, and we claim by right of forfeit." Kalia inclined her head slightly, acknowledging the threats without showing fear. "The Zareen remember those who challenge what is rightfully claimed. Go now. Tend your wounded. The trial moon's light fades, and with it, your chance to contest." The defeated huntresses began to withdraw, collecting their wounded, casting venomous glances at Kalia as they retreated into the darkness. Their movements were stiff with wounded pride and promises of future retribution. Once they had gone, Kalia turned her attention to Michael. Her golden eyes studied him with unsettling intensity. "You're the first sky man to sleep through a claiming battle," she said, her voice carrying a hint of what might have been amusement. "Most scream or run or fight." Michael kept his hand on his weapon, I've learned to assess before acting. There were too many to fight, and running seemed pointless in a desert I don't know. He paused. So what happens now that you've claimed me? Kalia gestured, and 6 huntresses emerged from the shadows, her clan members who had waited while she fought. They approached with ceremonial formality. Now you come to the Zareen settlement. You and your sky vessel belong to our clan, she explained. The metal bird will be examined. You will be judged by the elders. And if I refuse? Michael asked, though he already knew the answer. Kalia's expression didn't change. The desert kills in a day. Our spears are quicker. She gestured toward his ship. Your choice is not between freedom and captivity. It is between death and life under our law. Michael released his grip on the weapon. Strategic surrender sometimes won wars where battle couldn't. Not much of a choice. 2 huntresses moved to bind his hands with cords that felt organic yet strong as steel. Another approached with what appeared to be a ceremonial collar. Thin metal bands inlaid with luminescent material that matched the patterns on their skin. This was attached to his neck, cool against his skin, marking him as property. Your iron bird requires special transport, Kalia said, watching as more of her clan examined his ship with surprisingly knowledgeable eyes. It will join us at the settlement. That cargo is my livelihood, Michael said firmly. Whatever your claiming law says, that ship stays sealed until I open it. Kalia considered him for a moment, then nodded. She issued commands to her clan in their language, and the huntresses backed away from the freighter's entry ramp. The Iron Bird will be claimed, but its innards remain untouched until the elders rule. She translated, This is our way. As they began the journey toward the distant fires that marked the Zareen settlement, Michael studied his captor. She moved differently than the others, more fluid, less rigid in her posture. The markings on her skin were less pronounced, suggesting youth or lower status. And she had fought with intelligence rather than brute force, choosing when to engage rather than rushing headlong into battle. Why did you claim me? He asked as they walked across the cooling sands. The others seemed more interested in my ship. Kalia's eyes remained fixed on the horizon. The ship is technology. We have encountered sky vessels before. She glanced at him briefly. But you slept through a battle of 20 warriors. You faced capture without fear. You negotiated terms despite being bound. A slight tilt of her head. You are unexpected. The journey took them across vast dunes that shimmered in the moonlight. The Zareen huntresses moved with the ease of those born to the desert, their pace steady despite the shifting sands. By the time they reached the settlement, a collection of structures that blended the organic and technological, dawn was breaking over the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert floor. The settlement came alive as they entered, azure-skinned figures emerging from dwellings to witness Kalia's procession. Michael noted that the structures seemed to shift colors with the changing light, anchored with what looked like bone and sinew, yet shimmering with technological enhancement. At least 30 more Zareen moved through the camp, some as tall as the huntresses, others smaller. Children, Michael realized. They stared at him with undisguised curiosity. A human was clearly a rarity in these parts. One small child, barely waist-high to the adults, approached cautiously before being quickly pulled back by an elder. But not before Michael caught the gleam of fascination rather than fear in those golden eyes. These children knew of humans only through stories, likely tales of monsters and enemies, not potential allies. He was secured to a post near the center of the camp, given a minimal amount of water but no food. 3 huntresses sat nearby, watching him with varying expressions, one hostile, one curious, one calculating. Your bones will make fine ornaments for my spear, said the hostile one, her voice thick with loathing. Your kind brought ruin to the ancient cities. The debt remains unpaid. Silence, Razka, admonished the calculating one. The Sky Man is claimed property now, not yours to threaten. She turned to Michael, assessing him like a piece of equipment. His vessel has technology we need. The metal that resists heat, the engine parts. Perhaps even the navigation crystals, if they survive the landing. You speak as if he cannot hear you, Cyrene, said the curious one, her voice softer than the others. She was younger, with fewer markings on her skin. I have questions for the Sky Man. How far have you traveled? What worlds have you seen? Is it true your kind builds cities that float among the stars? Before Michael could answer, a tall, scarred huntress approached, silencing the trio with a sharp gesture. Her elaborate scarification identified her as an elder of significant status. "Enough idle talk," she commanded, her gaze cold as it swept over Michael. "I am Elder Verax. The council has decided. The claiming must be verified. The trial begins when the second sun reaches its zenith." She fixed Michael with an imperious stare. "Prepare yourself, human. Today you will witness the true strength of the Tsarine." The curious huntress leaned closer once Verax had departed. "What is your name, Skyman?" she whispered. "Michael Carter," he replied. "I am Tariel," she said, "and I believe the stars sent you here for a purpose, though the elders refuse to see it." "The only purpose he serves is to strengthen our arsenal," Cyrene cut in. "The nomad clans grow bolder each season. His ship's weapons will help us defend what is ours." Razga spat in the sand. "We need no sky weapons. Our spears and our courage have served us for generations." Their argument escalated, voices rising until a drum began to beat somewhere in the camp. The sound cut through their dispute like a knife. All three huntresses fell silent, rising to their feet with sudden formality. "It begins," Tariel said, a note of regret in her voice. Morning came with drums. The camp transformed into an arena, a circle of spears planted in the sand. Michael was brought to a raised platform where Elder Verax sat, her expression imperious. His bindings were loosened, but not removed entirely, giving him limited movement. The air hung heavy with dust, hot metal, and blood. Every breath filled his lungs with the gritty particles, making his throat dry and rough. The arena gradually filled with spectators until every seat was occupied. Then, drums began to beat, and 12 huntresses entered, all who had participated in Kalia's claiming the night before, now adorned with ceremonial paint and additional weapons. Elder Verax rose and addressed the crowd, her powerful voice carrying throughout the chamber. Though Michael couldn't understand her words, the intent was clear. This was a ritual with deep significance, a tradition that defined their society. When she finished, the crowd roared its approval, and the huntresses moved to positions around the arena's perimeter. "She says the claiming is sacred," Kalia translated, standing nearby as official interpreter. "Though I claimed you under the trial moon, tradition demands a formal contest to determine final ownership. The victor will bring honor to her bloodline." "And if you lose?" Michael asked quietly. "Then another becomes your master," Kalia replied, her golden eyes fixed on the arena floor. "And I lose more than just a claim." At a signal Michael couldn't perceive, the huntresses exploded into motion. What followed was unlike any combat he had ever witnessed. A combination of ritualized dance and deadly serious fighting. They used spears, short blades, and hand-to-hand techniques with astonishing skill. It wasn't chaotic but precisely choreographed, each movement flowing into the next with purpose and grace. Yet it was brutal. Iridescent blue blood spattered the sand as blows connected. 2 huntresses fell quickly, removed from the arena by attendants. The remaining 10 continued, the complexity of their combat increasing as their numbers decreased. "You're not participating?" he asked Kalia. "I stand as translator," she replied. "My role is different today. I fought for you under the trial moon. Now others contest my right." The fighting continued for what seemed like hours, the crowd's fervor growing with each elimination. Finally, only 3 remained. The scarred Elder Verax, a short-haired huntress called Zareen, and a third Michael hadn't interacted with directly. "The final phase approaches," Kalia said quietly. "Now blood will truly flow." The 3 huntresses circled each other warily, their earlier precision giving way to a more primal, dangerous style. Verax moved with surprising speed for her size, while Zareen employed a more acrobatic approach, using the arena walls to launch attacks from unexpected angles. Suddenly, a disturbance rippled through the crowd. Heads turned toward the arena entrance, where a new figure appeared. Kalia, now dressed in formal attire with her spear held vertically rather than in attack position. The crowd's collective intake of breath created a sound like wind through a narrow canyon. "What are you doing?" Michael asked, a cold wave of dread washing over him as she stepped past him. This wasn't the plan they'd discussed. "Ending this madness," she replied, her golden eyes fixed on the arena floor. She strode directly into the center of the combat, raising her spear high. "Enough!" Her voice carried across the arena with commanding authority. "This bloodshed weakens us all, while the desert grows stronger. Our numbers dwindle, and yet we continue to tear at each other like beasts fighting over scraps. Elder Verax shouted something that needed no translation. It was clearly an objection. Kalia responded by turning to face the entire council of elders, her posture straight and defiant. Elders! Our ancestors left us the right of vision, not so we could quarrel over prizes and spoils, but so we might see a new path when the old one leads to the abyss. Her voice rose, carrying to every corner of the arena. Today I invoke this right. The desert claims more of our territory each season. Our children grow fewer. Our future dims while we cling to traditions that no longer serve us. She drove her spear into the sand. I invoke the right of vision. The elders must hear me. The crowd erupted in murmurs. Michael could see the shock on faces throughout the arena. Some outraged, others intrigued, many fearful of such a direct challenge to authority. What's happening? Michael asked the nearest guard, who for once actually responded. The right of vision hasn't been invoked in generations, the guard explained, his voice hushed with awe. It allows a huntress to challenge not just for a prize, but for a change in tribal law. Kalia descended to the arena floor, facing the three finalists. Words were exchanged, too distant for Michael to hear. Then to his shock, Elder Verax stepped back, allowing Kalia to join the final combat. The youngest huntress challenges the elders. Someone nearby translated for Michael's benefit. A different azure-skinned woman he hadn't noticed before. It has not happened in 3 generations. Is that allowed? Michael asked. It is rare, but sacred, the woman replied. When a young huntress challenges, she stakes her life on the outcome. If she fails, she is exiled. If she succeeds, the woman shrugged, she becomes legend. The combat resumed, now with 4 participants. Kalia fought defensively, using her smaller size to evade rather than engage directly. Her spear flashed in complex patterns, keeping her opponents at bay. It was a different strategy than the others, who sought to eliminate competitors through direct confrontation. The third huntress fell first, a decisive strike from Zareen, leaving her bleeding heavily. Attendants rushed to remove her from the arena. Now only Verax, Zareen, and Kalia remained. Verax and Zareen seemed to form an unspoken alliance, both turning their attention to Kalia. They attacked from opposite directions, forcing her into a desperate defense. Michael leaned forward involuntarily, his fingers digging into the platform's edge as he watched the uneven match. Each near miss sent his pulse racing. Each successful parry by Kalia brought a moment of relief that quickly dissolved into renewed tension. The air had grown thick with dust and the metallic smell of spilled blood. Michael could taste it, coppery yet strange, like licking a battery wrapped in silk. Sweat poured down his face, mixing with the fine sand that clung to every exposed inch of skin. His fingers were sticky with sweat and dust as he gripped the platform, the wood rough beneath his palms. Kalia spun her spear in a blinding arc, creating space momentarily. Then in a move Michael could barely follow, she rolled beneath Zareen's attack, came up behind her, and struck. Not a killing blow, but a precise hit to the back of Zareen's knee. The huntress stumbled, and Kalia followed with a second strike that sent her sprawling. The crowd roared, some in approval, others in outrage. Now only Verax and Kalia faced each other, the mentor and the student. The woman beside Michael commented, "This is a challenge of generations." Elder Verax attacked with fury, her greater size and strength forcing Kalia to retreat. Blow after blow rained down, some blocked by Kalia's spear, others narrowly avoided. A glancing hit opened a cut on Kalia's arm, her iridescent blood joining the stains on the arena floor. The smell intensified, a strange electric scent like ozone mixed with sea salt that made Michael's nostrils flare. Michael became acutely aware of every sensation in the arena. The clash of weapons, the ragged breathing of the combatants, the collective murmur of the crowd that rose and fell with each exchange. Sand gritted between his teeth. The heat from the twin suns burned his exposed neck and arms, adding to the discomfort of his position. Why did he care who won? Either way, he remained a captive, a prize to be claimed. Yet something about Kalia's desperate stand against overwhelming odds resonated with him. Perhaps it was a recognition of the same stubborn refusal to surrender that had kept him alive through the war, through the lonely years that followed. The fight continued, Verax pressing her advantage relentlessly. Kalia was tiring, her movements slowing fractionally. Then she stumbled on the blood-slick sand, momentarily losing her balance. Verax saw the opening and lunged. Her spear sliced toward Kalia's exposed side. A killing strike. But at the last possible instant, Kalia twisted, allowing the spear to pass so close it tore her garment. In the same motion, she brought her own weapon up under Verax's guard and pressed it against the elder's throat. The arena fell silent. The two Huntresses remained frozen in that tableau. Verax's spear extended past Kalia's body, Kalia's weapon at Verax's throat. Neither moved, neither breathed. Then slowly, Elder Verax lowered her spear. She spoke a single word that echoed in the silence. The crowd erupted, some cheering, some shouting in protest. Kalia stepped back, lowering her own weapon. She inclined her head to Verax, a gesture of respect despite her victory. "The claiming is complete," the woman beside Michael announced. "The young huntress has won the right to the sky vessel and its master." Michael felt a strange mixture of relief and uncertainty. "What happens now?" "Now you belong to Kalia of the Zareen," the woman replied. "Your fate is hers to decide." Bound and dragged to their camp, Michael noticed Kalia walking apart, refusing to join the jeers of those who had supported her victory. The camp was a collection of structures that seemed to blend the organic and the technological. Tents made of a material that shimmered and shifted colors with the changing light, yet anchored with what looked like bone and sinew. At night, by the dying fire, Kalia approached him. "I don't want to fight for you," she whispered, "but if I don't, my sisters will strip me of name and clan. What I claimed under the trial moon, I must defend in the light of day." Michael studied her eyes, not cruel like the others, but heavy with guilt. He had managed to loosen the rope on his wrist just enough to pass her his canteen. She froze, then drank. Water shared in the desert was not kindness, it was trust. "Why are you different?" he asked quietly. "The others look at me like I'm a trophy. You look at me like I'm a person." Kalia glanced toward the other shelters, ensuring they weren't overheard. "I studied at the Coastal Academy before returning to my tribe. I've met humans before, learned your languages, your customs." "Then you know this is wrong," Michael pressed. "What I know and what I can change are different matters," she replied, her voice barely audible. "Elder Verax lost her mate to human raiders 3 cycles ago. Her hatred runs deep." Michael absorbed this information. "I'm not a raider." "But you are human," Kalia said simply. "And you fell from the sky with a ship full of treasures. In her eyes, that makes you no different. And in your eyes," Kalia hesitated, her gaze dropping momentarily. "In my eyes, you are unexpected." Something unspoken hung between them, a recognition that transcended their vastly different origins. She stood abruptly, breaking the moment. "Rest. Tomorrow will test us both." Michael watched her walk away, her silver hair catching the moonlight like liquid mercury. The graceful, predatory confidence in her movements contrasted with the brief vulnerability he'd glimpsed in her eyes. He worked at his bindings throughout the night, loosening them further, but not enough to free himself completely. He needed to be ready, but escape now would only result in immediate recapture, or worse. The following day, Michael was brought before the Council of Elders. Unlike the arena, this was a more solemn gathering held in a circular chamber deep within the settlement's central structure. 24 elders, male and female, though the females clearly held higher status, sat in a ring around a central fire pit where blue flames danced without visible fuel. The walls were covered in intricate carvings that appeared to tell the tribe's history: ship crashes, desert beasts, battles, and rituals. Michael's entrance with Kalia caused an immediate stir. Conversation stopped, heads turned, expressions hardened. Elder Verax, presiding over the gathering, rose from her ornate seat. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded in the Zareen language, which Kalia translated for Michael. "The human wishes to witness the proceedings that determine his fate," Kalia explained, her tone respectful but firm. "As the current holder of the claiming, I granted his request." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Verax's face darkened with anger. "The claiming gives you rights to his service, not authority to violate council sanctity." "The claiming binds us," Kalia countered. "His fate is my fate. It is my right to ensure that fate is justly determined." The elders conferred among themselves, their debate growing heated. Michael noted that several younger council members seemed supportive of Kalia's position, while the older ones were uniformly opposed. Finally, Verax raised her hand for silence. "The human may stay," she announced, her voice cold. "But one disrespect, one word out of turn, and he will be removed, permanently." Michael was positioned at the edge of the circle, standing while all others sat, a clear reminder of his outsider status. Kalia took her place among the younger council members, though the space left for her was noticeably smaller than that accorded to others of her rank. The debate resumed, and through Kalia's occasional whispered translations, Michael began to understand the issue at hand. His ship contained technology the Zareen desperately needed, particularly the navigation and communication systems. Some argued for stripping it completely, regardless of their promise to Michael. Others advocated honoring the claiming tradition, but there was a deeper current beneath the technical discussion, a fundamental divide in Zareen society. The traditionalists, led by Verax, saw outsiders as resources to be exploited, technology as tools to maintain their current way of life. The progressives, with whom Kalia clearly aligned, believed in learning from outsiders, adapting and evolving their society. "The old ways have kept us alive for generations," one elder argued, his body covered in elaborate scarification. "We take what falls from the sky, we use what we need, we survive." "We do not merely survive, we stagnate," countered a younger female elder. "Our population dwindles. The desert encroaches further each season. The old ways will not save us from extinction." The debate circled back to Michael and his ship. "The Skyman's vessel contains communication systems that could contact the coastal settlements," Kalia noted. "Perhaps even reach beyond our world." "And bring more outsiders?" Verax scoffed. "To what end? Our strength is in our isolation." "Our weakness is in our isolation," Kalia responded, earning murmurs of agreement from some, hisses of disapproval from others. Finally, Verax turned to Michael directly. "You have heard our debate, Skyman. What say you? What would you do with your vessel if released?" The direct address startled him. All eyes turned to him, evaluating, judging. Michael chose his words carefully. "I would repair it, as I've been doing. I would honor my arrangement with Kalia, teaching her to pilot it, sharing knowledge of the systems, and yes, I would leave. But I could return with supplies, with information, with connection to the wider galaxy." "And why would you do this?" another elder asked skeptically. "What benefit to you?" Michael glanced at Kalia before answering. "Because not all traditions are worth preserving, but some connections are." The council erupted in debate again, more heated than before. Insults were exchanged, ancient grievances resurrected. Michael watched as years, perhaps decades, of simmering tribal tensions boiled to the surface, his situation merely the catalyst for a much deeper conflict. Throughout it all, Kalia remained composed, though Michael could see the toll it took on her. When she spoke, her arguments were logical, measured, but they were often dismissed or interrupted by the traditionalists. Her isolation within her own society had never been more apparent. As the debate dragged on, Michael became aware of a subtle shift in the atmosphere, not within the council chamber, but beyond it. A change in air pressure, a distant vibration. He glanced at Kalia and saw that she felt it too, her head tilting slightly as she listened to something beyond human hearing. Then the ground trembled. The council fell silent, conversations dying mid-sentence as the vibration grew stronger. Dust sifted down from the carved ceiling. The blue flames in the central pit flickered wildly. "Tara Khan," someone whispered, the name passing through the assembly like a shiver. And in that moment, Michael felt something strange, a presence brushing against his mind, ancient and powerful. Images flashed through his thoughts, endless dunes, the passage of countless seasons, the rise and fall of civilizations in the desert. Then suddenly a vision of the night sky, but not as he knew it. Stars in unfamiliar patterns, brighter and more numerous than he'd ever seen, as though viewed from this world thousands of years in the past, before light pollution, before the desert had fully claimed the land. The vision was so vivid he could almost feel the cool night air of that ancient time. He gripped the edge of his seat, startled by the alien consciousness that had somehow touched his own. "What is it?" Kalia whispered, noticing his sudden tension. "I saw stars, the sky as it was millennia ago," Michael managed, his voice unsteady. "Something is in my mind." Elder Verax rose, her face pale beneath its azure hue. The great devourer comes. The council is suspended. The chamber emptied rapidly, elders hurrying toward the surface. Michael found himself caught in the flow, Kalia's hand firmly on his arm guiding him. "What's happening?" he asked as they emerged into the settlement's central plaza. "I felt something in my mind." Kalia looked at him sharply. "You felt the Tarakan? That's impossible. Only those with desert blood can sense its call." "The Tarakan approaches," she continued, her voice tense. "It has not come to a settlement in living memory." All around them, Zareen hurried to defensive positions or shelter. Warriors formed ranks, their weapons ready, though Michael could see fear in their stances. The very ground beneath them pulsed with approaching doom. Then at the settlement's edge, the sand began to rise. A sand colossus, the tribe's totem predator, emerged from beneath the dunes, its massive body easily the size of Michael's freighter. Sand cascaded from its flanks as it moved, revealing armored plates beneath. 6 limbs propelled it forward with surprising speed, and its maw opened to reveal rows of crystalline teeth that glinted in the sunlight. The tribe members fled toward their shelters, all except Elder Verax, who remained frozen in either fear or awe. The Huntresses had formed a perimeter around their camp, spears at the ready, but the Colossus ignored them, its attention fixed on Michael. The children were hurried inside by protective adults, though Michael noticed one small girl who lingered at the entrance of a dwelling, watching the scene with more curiosity than terror. Among the children, one girl waved, not in fear, but in farewell, as if she understood somehow what was about to unfold. He could smell its breath, hot, ancient, carrying the scent of minerals and something organic that turned his stomach. The creature lowered its massive head, sensory appendages flickering toward him, tasting the air. Michael realized it was drawn to the blood spilled during the combat, and perhaps to him, the outsider, the anomaly in its territory. Michael felt the tension in the air, the expectation of violence. But instead of running, he did something that surprised even himself. He uncapped his canteen and splashed the last of his water toward the beast's cracked hide. The creature stopped, sniffed. Its sensory appendages quivered. Then it extended its massive head to drink from the small puddle forming in the sand. After consuming the offering, it lowered its enormous body to the ground, making a sound like stones grinding together. A purr. As the beast drank, Michael felt that alien presence touch his mind again. Stronger this time. Not with words, but with impressions. Curiosity, recognition, a strange sense of kinship. The creature was aware of him, not just as prey or threat, but as something it recognized on a deeper level. The tribe gasped collectively. To tame a beast with no blade, no roar, only mercy, was unheard of in their tradition. Elder Verax approached cautiously, her previous authority diminished in the presence of the beast. She spoke rapidly to Kalia, who had moved to Michael's side. "This changes everything," Kalia translated, her voice hushed with awe. "The Tarakan has not been seen for 3 generations. For it to appear and submit to you." She struggled to find the words. "It is a sign." The Tarakan rumbled again, its massive body shifting as it settled more comfortably into the sand. Its sensory appendages remained fixed on Michael, and he felt a strange calm despite the bizarre circumstances. Kalia dropped her spear. "The law is clear," Elder Verax spat. "The beast has chosen. The man belongs to Kalia, or she dies with him." The pronouncement sent shockwaves through the gathered tribe. Kalia herself seemed stunned, her golden eyes wide with surprise. "What does that mean?" Michael asked urgently. "It means..." Kalia swallowed hard. "It means that by our oldest laws, when the Tarakan appears during a claiming, it can choose the worthy. It has never chosen an outsider before, but it has chosen you, and by extension me, as I stand closest to you." "And the dying part," Michael pressed. "If I accept the claiming, I become responsible for you. If you violate our laws or bring harm to the tribe, we both face judgment." Kalia's voice dropped lower. "If I reject the claiming, it is seen as rejecting the will of the desert itself. The punishment is exile, which in these wastes means death." Elder Verax barked a command, and the Huntresses formed a circle around Michael, Kalia, and the still purring Colossus. The elder approached, a ceremonial dagger now in her hand. Its blade was the same crystalline material as the Colossus's teeth. "She demands your choice," Kalia said. "Now!" Michael stared at the knife, at the Colossus, at the circle of Huntresses with their spears at the ready. Then he looked at Kalia, this warrior who had fought for him, translated for him, shown him a kindness no other here had offered. In that moment, something shifted inside him. 6 years of isolation, of running from his past, of avoiding connection, and now this strange twist of fate had bound him to another being across the gulf of species and culture. "No," Michael said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent gathering. His fingers slipped from the restraints, sticky with sweat and dust. "I won't be owned. Not by law, not by a beast." As the Huntresses raised their spears, Kalia moved, not away from him, but to stand between Michael and the weapons of her people. The scent of her was immediate and strange. Something like cinnamon and metal, a combination that shouldn't have been pleasant, but somehow was. "He speaks truth," she said in their language, then switched to his. "This is not our way, but perhaps our way needs to change." Elder Verak's face contorted with rage. "You choose him over your people? Over our laws?" "I choose what is right," Kalia replied. "The claiming law was meant to protect our people, not to enslave others." Michael met Kalia's eyes, a wordless understanding passing between them. He reached out his hand. "You once said you'd be exiled for standing by me? Then let's both walk out, not as master and claimed, but as something new, together." The Terracon rose to its full, impressive height, placing itself beside Michael and Kalia. It regarded the gathering with ancient eyes before making a sound like distant thunder. A warning. Elder Verak stepped back, the ceremonial dagger lowered. "Go then," she said, her voice bitter. "But know this, once you leave with him, you are no longer Zareen. Your name will be struck from our histories, your deeds forgotten." "Perhaps," Kalia said quietly, "that is the price of making new history." 3 days later, a solemn procession wound its way through the Zareen settlement toward Michael's repaired freighter. Not a secret escape, but a formal exile, witnessed by the entire tribe. The Huntresses lined the path, spears held vertically in a gesture that was neither threat nor honor, but acknowledgement. Michael walked beside Kalia, both of them dressed in simple travel garments provided by the progressives among the tribe. Behind them, the elders followed at a respectful distance, led by Verax, whose face remained impassive despite the fury in her eyes. As they approached the ship, Michael noticed the children of the tribe watching from behind the adults. Among them, one small girl waved, not in fear, but in farewell. Several of the younger Huntresses, including Tariel, stood with heads slightly bowed, a subtle gesture of respect that risked elder disapproval. At the base of the ship's ramp, Elder Verax spoke the formal words of banishment, which Kalia translated in a steady voice despite the emotion Michael could see in her eyes. "From this day, you are no longer Zareen. Your name is struck from our histories, your deeds forgotten, your blood no longer ours. Go into the wastes and do not return." As the ceremonial dagger cut the clan markings from Kalia's arm, leaving a thin line of iridescent blood, a distant rumble caused heads to turn. At the edge of the settlement, sand shifted and rose as the massive form of the Terracon emerged partially from the dunes. It made no move to approach, but its presence was unmistakable, a silent witness to their departure. The elders stepped back, their expressions shifting from contempt to uncertainty at this unprecedented development. The Terracon had never appeared at a banishment before, and its meaning could be interpreted in many ways. Kalia raised her chin, her voice carrying across the gathering. "Perhaps exile from the dying is not punishment, but liberation. We go not into the wastes, but into the future." Without another word, she turned and ascended the ramp. Michael followed, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes upon them. As the ramp closed, he caught a final glimpse of the settlement, and of the massive desert beast that had somehow formed a bond with him, its ancient eyes watching as the ship prepared for departure. The engines hummed to life, repaired just enough for spaceflight. Kalia sat beside him in the co-pilot's seat, her golden eyes wide as she watched her world fall away beneath them. Her fingers pressed against the viewport, tracing the shrinking outline of the settlement she had called home for her entire life. In the distance, they could see the Terracon, a massive shadow moving across the desert, tracking their ascent. As the ship broke atmosphere, Michael noticed her reflection in the glass, a single tear tracking down her azure cheek, leaving a luminescent trail that glowed briefly before fading. "They will erase me," she said softly, her voice almost lost beneath the hum of the engines. "Even my childhood name, my history, my deeds, my entire existence. Removed from tribal memory as if I never was." Michael watched her in silence, understanding the magnitude of what she had sacrificed. Her entire identity, her culture, her place in the world, all abandoned for the sake of principles that her people refused to acknowledge. "Then we'll make you a new one," he said finally. "Together." Kalia turned to him, vulnerability and strength mingled in her expression. "Where to after that?" Michael looked at the stars and replied simply, "No need. I think I've finally found mine." As the stars spread out before them, Michael felt something he hadn't experienced in years, a sense of possibility, of future. He had woken to chaos. Now he slept beside her, finally at peace. The ship accelerated into the darkness between worlds, carrying them both toward whatever came next.